Hello, Heinrich back with another Sunday serving. Words of hope and meaning from the gospel. So summer's passing and it's getting close to school time. Time for school to start again. We've really enjoyed summer, but I think all of our thoughts are going to the fall. And up to now, we've taken this transition for granted, and it's easy to slip back into the routine of school. Some people do it happily, look forward to it, other people more grudgingly, slipping back into the rhythm of school, getting back to work. But this year, it's different. Everybody is stressing out about even whether or not there'll be school, or if there is, how are their children going to safely attend school? If there's not school, how are we going to have our children study at home? If they're going to school, how are we going to keep them safe? How are we going to keep them positively occupied and keep their education going on at home? I know some states and schools have already decided to close, to stay closed, and others have decided to open up with various models of, distance learning and classroom learning. All measures to protect students and teachers, which is very important. This is a hotly debated and charged subject. But I think we all agree that our children are the ones who are important, and they're the ones who will be affected the most by these changes that are a reality today. So what I want to talk about today is how can we stay positive? How can we be hopeful and even be peaceful and confident with all this uncertain and frustrating future ahead of our children and all of us? And how can we do it for the sake of our children? Education is so important. Equipping our children for a productive and successful future as adults, as members of society, it's so important. And of course, that's primarily the responsibility of parents to see to this for their children. But it's also up to us as a community, as a village or a society, as a nation, to build up our future and our children. You know that old saying, it's been used many times, it takes a village to raise a child. That's really true. Interestingly enough, it's of African origin, I think from the Nigerian Igbo culture. But there are also some wonderful Bible passages about children and about education that can give us some direction and some hope and some wisdom. The Old Testament, Proverbs, the book of Proverbs is full of wonderful sayings about education and children. Proverbs 1, 7 through 9 says something like, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, right? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's beautiful. And it says, hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland for your head and pendants for your neck. That's a beautiful thought. I think in Proverbs 22 it says something like, train up your child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that's a true saying, that whatever children learn when they're young, they stick with. Of course, my favorite, because I'm a proud grandfather of 3, my own children my youngest is in high school and the 3 of the older ones are still in college. But I have 3 grandchildren and the oldest is in 2nd grade. Proverbs 17 says, grandchildren are the crown of the aged. I don't consider myself aged, but grandchildren are the crown of the aged, and the glory of the children is their fathers. Well, today, you don't just have to listen to words from a boring pastor and grandfather, because somewhere right back here chilling in a hammock is my young friend Ruben. Ruben, come on over here. I know you're enjoying summer and getting ready for school, but come and help me with this conversation here. Ruben, he's a teacher. He studied in City College in New York City and earned his degree in secondary education. Hi, Ruben.
Hey,
welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And sorry to take you out of the hammock there. So, Ruben, how does this current situation that we're in with the uncertainty of school and schools opening, how does that affect children and families from the schools that you had experienced teaching in New York City and Harlem? And I know you're now moving upstate here and teaching here, but how do you think that affects children and families? And how do you think we should approach this school year as a society, both from the background of a teacher and from families, from society? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. That's a really great question. I really think that so much is being lost with face-to-face contact with the students. So moving forward to your question, I think It's really important that there is some type of face-to-face contact, whether that's teachers going out onto the street to meet students at their doorstep that's socially distant, or like my school did, some shopping for some of the families who couldn't even get out to do their own shopping. We would show up at the students' doors, give their mothers, their grandmothers the groceries they needed. And then also just to, I would say, add humor to the daily routine. I was posting dance videos on Google Classroom twice a week. I was singing songs and playing the keys. My kids didn't know I did that until I started doing that on Zoom. But I guess just breathing life into whatever situation we have. So I would say moving forward, trying to find the positive, and trying to really have as much face-to-face contact where possible.
I was wondering, Ruben, do you have any words of hope for families out there or for students? And do you have a favorite Bible passage that talks about children and education that you think is important for the school year?
Yeah, I mean, being a believer and being a teacher who believes in Christ, the passage that comes to mind is the one from Matthew 19. Let the children come to me and do not hinder them, because the kingdom of heaven belongs to them, belongs to the children. And I think as a teacher, that simple statement is super important to remember. And I would love to throw that out to my students to remember that they do have the kingdom and God within them, and where we can, we need to foster that.
That is a wonderful passage, those words of Jesus really centering on children, that we should not stop children from coming to Jesus. Don't hinder them. And that's a good thing to think about. What does it actually mean to not hinder children, to not interfere with what God gives to them, their own truth and honesty and joy in life? There's another quote from Matthew 18 where he called a child and put the child in the midst of the disciples as they were meeting there. They must have been talking about complicated things, and he said this, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." That's quite a thought, that we have to become like children to enter the kingdom of heaven. And whoever receives a child in my name receives me. So those two words of Jesus should always turn our hearts to children and to the innocence and the joy of childhood. Sure. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the circle of life or something, to use the phrase from The Lion King. Really, like, we have to, grow up from childhood and then realize that we have to become like children again to actually get to heaven or get to the kingdom, because it's through their eyes and the way, children think, straightforward and mostly positive, that we can actually get anywhere.
So Ruben, thank you for those thoughts, and for all of you out there, this year let's do our best for children, to love them, and let's work together to give them a good year, a good education, whether it's at home or in school. Find ways to do that, creative ways. I'm sure we can. And the most important education is to teach them, don't you think, to love and respect other people. Absolutely. No matter what their background, no matter what their culture, their faith, or their race. Yeah. Another important thing is obedience, I think. To be obedient to parents and to adults in authority positions. We shouldn't forget the wisdom of the fifth commandment, honor your father and mother. That's right. But there's a second part to that, so that it may go well with you. Yeah. And many people forget that second part. It's not just about what Dad says goes no matter what. It's so that it may go well for you. Right. So, whatever we do, we can find creative ways to do it, whether it's reading more, reading good books, stories, fairy tales, legends, histories, biographies, adventures, mysteries, right? Classic novels. There's so much we can do with our children. And for the maths and sciences, I'm sure we can find math problems in our kitchens, maybe on the news, maybe in the yard, in the workplace.
Applied math.
Applied math, and that's exciting. And we should be ready to help our neighbors if they have children and are getting stressed out and having trouble with this. And we should have the positive attitude that it's going to be okay. We will get through this. Sure. And I think actually something good, it's an opportunity. We'll learn the importance of school and education. We'll appreciate it more. And we'll build back better and stronger because of this struggle. So we have to believe that, we have to hope in the future, and we have to do it together. Don't you agree, Ruben?
Agreed, yes, 100%.
So everybody out there, hope you have a good week and look forward to school, and thank you for watching, and God bless all of you. So Ruben, I noticed you have an interesting shirt on about distance learning. What does it say with my
favorite peeps?
with my distance learning with my favorite peeps? Could you tell about that shirt? Where did you get it from?
Sure, so true story. This arrived on 138th Street where I was living in Harlem the last week of school. And my kids had actually designed, my students, not my kids, I call them my kids because they basically are after a school year, but they designed the shirt and made it for a bunch of us teachers and sent it out because we were all obviously at our homes and doing distance learning. So really the coolest part of the shirt is the back. So I get up and turn it around so you can see it.
Serving size, 1 phenomenal teacher. Other ingredients include army of love, children first, strategic relentlessness and excellence, respect, and best self to best serve.